It started on a quiet evening, the kind where nothing feels out of place until everything does. In a small village, where everyone knew each other's names and secrets traveled faster than the wind, there lived a man named Karim and his wife, Amina. From the outside, their life looked simple, maybe even peaceful. A small house, a few goats, and just enough food on the table to get by. But behind those mud walls, something had been changing. People in the village had started noticing the tension. Karim had become quieter, colder. Amina, once full of laughter, now walked with her head down, speaking only when necessary. No one knew exactly what was happening between them, but everyone could feel it. That evening, the sky turned a deep shade of orange as the sun slowly disappeared. Inside their home, voices were raised, something rare for them. At first, it was just murmurs, then sharper words, then silence. A heavy, uncomfortable silence. And then it happened. Karim pointed to the door. "Leave," he said. Just one word. Cold. Final. Amina stood there, frozen. She thought maybe she had heard him wrong. Maybe this was anger speaking, not truth. But when she looked into his eyes, she realized he meant it. With trembling hands, she picked up her scarf. No bag, no food, no place to go. Just her dignity and whatever strength she had left. She stepped out of the house slowly, hoping, just hoping, that he would stop her. But he didn't. The door closed behind her. And just like that, everything changed. The village was already settling into the night. A few lanterns flickered in the distance, and the sound of crickets filled the air. Amina walked down the narrow path, her heart heavy, her thoughts louder than the silence around her. Where would she go? Who would take her in at this hour? But something strange happened. As she reached the edge of the village, she stopped. Not because she was tired, but because she felt something. A chill. Not from the night air, but something deeper. Something that made her turn around. Back at the house, Karim stood alone. At first, he felt a strange sense of control, maybe even relief. The arguments were over. The tension gone. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. He sat down, expecting peace, but instead, an uneasy feeling crept in. The kind you can't explain. The kind that makes your chest feel tight, for no clear reason. He shook it off. "This is for the best," he muttered to himself. But the night had other plans. Hours passed. The moon climbed higher in the sky. The village fell completely silent. And then something unusual happened. A loud knock echoed on Karim's door. He frowned. Who could it be at this hour? Another knock. Louder this time. He hesitated for a moment before standing up. His heart began to beat faster, though he didn't know why. Slowly, he walked toward the door. When he opened it, there was no one there. Just darkness. He stepped outside, looking left and right. Empty. The wind moved softly through the trees, carrying a faint, almost whisper-like sound. Karim felt a shiver run down his spine. He quickly shut the door and bolted it. "Just my imagination," he said, trying to calm himself. But deep down, he knew something wasn't right. Meanwhile, Amina had found herself near an old path that very few people used anymore. The kind of place elders warned about, the kind children were told to avoid. But tonight, she had no choice. She sat down under a tree, hugging herself, trying to stay warm. That's when she heard it. A soft voice, calling her name. At first, she thought it was the wind playing tricks on her. But then it came again, clearer this time. Amina. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked around, but there was no one there. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice barely steady. No answer. Just silence. But the feeling that she was not alone only grew stronger. Back in the house, Karim tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he heard something. Footsteps. Whispers. A faint sound like someone moving just outside the walls. He sat up suddenly. And then he heard it. A voice. Soft. Familiar. Amina. His eyes widened. That was impossible. He got up again, this time more afraid than before. Slowly, he walked through the house, checking every corner. Nothing. But the voice didn't stop. It was getting closer. And that's when Kareem realized something that made his blood run cold. The voice wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the house. At the same time, miles away, or maybe not so far at all, Amina stood up, her fear slowly turning into something else, something stronger. Because the voice calling her now, it didn't sound threatening anymore. It sounded guiding, as if something or someone was leading her somewhere. And just as she took her first step forward, following that mysterious call, back at the house, Kareem turned around sharply as something moved behind him in the darkness. He wasn't alone. Not anymore. And what happened next, no one in that village could have ever imagined.
Kareem froze where he stood, his breath caught somewhere between his chest and his throat. The small clay lamp in the corner flickered, casting long, shaky shadows across the walls. For a moment he tried to convince himself it was nothing, just fear playing tricks on his mind. But the air inside the house had changed. It felt heavier, like something unseen had stepped in and refused to leave. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice not as strong as he wanted it to be. No answer. Only the faint creak of wood, as if someone had shifted their weight on the other side of the room. Kareem took a slow step forward. Then another. His eyes scanned every corner, the old wooden chest, the rolled mats, the cooking pots neatly placed by the wall. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt the same. And then the lamp went out. Darkness swallowed the room completely. Kareem's heart began pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. He reached out blindly, trying to find the wall, the door, anything solid. But before his hand could touch anything, he felt something else. A sudden, cold breeze. Inside a closed house. He stepped back quickly, his foot hitting something on the ground. He stumbled, almost falling, and as he tried to steady himself, that same soft voice whispered again. "Amina." This time it wasn't just a sound. It felt close. Too close. Kareem rushed toward the door and threw it open, gasping as he stepped outside into the night air. He didn't stop until he reached the middle of the yard, his chest rising and falling rapidly. He turned back to look at the house. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a figure standing in the doorway. But when he blinked, it was gone. Far from the house, Amina walked slowly along the narrow, forgotten path. The ground beneath her feet was uneven, covered in dry leaves and small stones. Every step echoed softly in the quiet night. The voice was still there. Not loud. Not frightening anymore. Just steady. "Amina, this way." She didn't know why, but she trusted it. Maybe it was because she had nowhere else to go. Or maybe, deep inside, she felt that whatever was guiding her knew something she didn't. The path led her deeper into an area she had only heard about in stories. Old stories told by elders during long winter nights, stories about strange happenings, about people who went missing, and others who returned, changed. She had never believed those stories fully. Until now. As she walked, she noticed something unusual. The air here felt different, cooler, calmer. Even the sounds of the night seemed distant, as if she had stepped into a place untouched by the rest of the world. Then she saw it. A faint light in the distance. It wasn't like a lantern or a fire. It was softer, almost glowing, like it was floating just above the ground. Amina stopped. Her instincts told her to be careful. But the voice, it kept calling. "Come." She swallowed her fear and took a step forward. Back in the village, Kareem couldn't bring himself to go back inside the house. He sat on the ground, his back against the outer wall, staring into the darkness. Every little sound made him flinch, the rustling of leaves, the distant bark of a dog, even the wind brushing past his ears. His mind kept replaying everything. The argument. The moment he told Amina to leave. The look on her face. For the first time that night, something else crept in, regret. But it was quickly overshadowed by fear. Because deep down, he knew what he experienced inside the house wasn't normal. This wasn't just guilt or imagination. Something had changed the moment Amina walked out. As the night grew deeper, a few villagers began to notice Kareem sitting outside. One of them, an older man named Bashir, approached slowly, holding a small lantern. "Kareem," he called gently. "What are you doing out here at this hour?" Kareem looked up, his eyes tired and uneasy. I can't go inside," he said. Bashir frowned. "Why not?" Kareem hesitated. How could he explain something he didn't fully understand himself? "There's something in there," he finally said. Bashir glanced toward the house, then back at Kareem. "What do you mean, something?" But before Kareem could answer, they both heard it. A sound from inside the house. Clear. Slow footsteps. Bashir's expression changed instantly. He lifted the lantern higher, its light trembling slightly in his hand. "Is someone inside?" he asked. Kareem shook his head. "No. I checked. There was no one." The footsteps stopped. Silence again. Bashir looked at Kareem, then back at the house. "Stay here," he said firmly. Before Kareem could stop him, Bashir walked toward the door. Meanwhile, Amina had reached the glowing light. As she got closer, she realized it wasn't just light, it was coming from a small, old structure hidden among the trees. The walls were worn, covered in vines as if it had been abandoned for years. Yet the light inside was alive. Amina stood at the entrance, her heart racing. The voice had stopped now, as if it had brought her exactly where she needed to be. She hesitated. Then, slowly she stepped inside. The moment she crossed the doorway, a strange calm washed over her. The fear she had been carrying all night began to fade, replaced by a quiet sense of something waiting. Something important. At the same time, back in the village, Bashir reached Kareem's door and pushed it open. The lantern light spilled into the darkness. For a second, everything looked normal. Then Bashir took one step inside, and suddenly stopped. His grip tightened on the lantern. "Kareem," he said slowly without turning back. "You said no one was inside." His voice trembled. Then, "Who is standing in the corner?" Kareem's body went stiff. For a moment he couldn't even breathe. He slowly turned his head toward the open door, his eyes searching Bashir's face for some kind of reassurance, but there was none. The old man wasn't joking. The fear in his eyes was real. "I told you," Kareem whispered, his voice barely there. Inside the house, the lantern light shook as Bashir lifted it higher. The corner he was staring at was the darkest part of the room, where the walls met and the shadows seemed thicker than anywhere else. "I can't see clearly," Bashir muttered, taking a careful step forward. Kareem wanted to stop him, but his voice wouldn't come out. His feet felt glued to the ground. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, still, silent. "Who are you?" Bashir called out, trying to sound firm, but there was a crack in his voice. No answer. The air inside the house felt colder with every second. Bashir took another step, and as the lantern light reached further into the corner, the shape became slightly clearer. It looked like a person. But something about it felt wrong. The posture. The stillness. The way it seemed to blend into the shadows instead of standing apart from them. And then, suddenly, the lantern flickered wildly. Bashir gasped and stepped back. The figure was gone. Just like that. As if it had never been there. Bashir turned quickly and walked out of the house without saying a word. Kareem stood up immediately. "You saw it, didn't you?" Kareem asked, his voice filled with both fear and a strange sense of validation. Bashir didn't answer right away. He looked back at the house, then at Kareem. "Something is not right here," he finally said. "And this didn't start tonight." Kareem frowned. "What do you mean?" Bashir hesitated, as if deciding whether to say what was on his mind. "Tell me the truth," he said. "What happened between you and Amina?" Kareem looked away. His jaw tightened. "It was just an argument," he said. "Nothing more." But even as he said it, the words felt weak. Bashir shook his head slowly. "No, this feels deeper than that. Sometimes when injustice happens inside a home, it doesn't stay hidden. It changes things in ways we don't understand." Kareem didn't respond, but the words settled heavily in his chest. At the same time, inside the old structure deep in the trees, Amina stood quietly, her eyes adjusting to the soft glow around her. The place was small but strangely peaceful. The walls were covered with faded markings, symbols she didn't recognize, yet somehow felt familiar. In the center of the room was a simple mat, and beside it, an old wooden box. She stepped closer, her curiosity slowly overcoming her fear. "Why am I here?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. For a moment there was no response. Then the voice returned. "Not from outside this time. From within the room. Because you were sent away, but not abandoned." Amina's breath caught. She turned quickly, trying to find the source, but again, no one was there. "What does that mean?" she asked. Silence. But then, her eyes slowly moved toward the wooden box. Something about it felt important. She knelt down in front of it, hesitating before reaching out. Her fingers brushed against the surface, and she felt a sudden warmth, unexpected but not painful. Carefully she opened it. Inside there was a folded piece of cloth, and beneath it, something that made her freeze. It was an old necklace. One she had seen before. But not in her own life. In stories. Stories her grandmother used to tell her as a child. Stories about protection, about unseen forces, about choices that could change everything. Amina's hands trembled slightly as she picked it up. "Why is this here?" she whispered. The voice came again, softer this time. "Because your story is not what you think it is." Back in the village, more people had started gathering near Kareem's house. Word had spread quickly, strange sounds, a shadow inside, something not right. Some were curious, others were concerned. But no one wanted to step inside. Kareem stood among them, feeling more exposed than ever. Just hours ago, he had felt in control of his life. Now it felt like everything was slipping away. A younger man stepped forward. "Maybe it's just fear," he said. "We're making it bigger than it is." Bashir shook his head firmly. "No. I've lived long enough to know the difference between fear and warning." Kareem looked at him. "Warning of what?" But before Bashir could answer, a sudden sound came from inside the house again. This time it was louder. Something falling. Everyone went silent. Kareem swallowed hard. Despite everything, something inside him pushed him forward. "I have to see," he said. "No," Bashir warned. "Not alone." But Kareem was already moving. Step by step he approached the door. The same door he had closed on Amina just hours earlier. Now it felt different. Heavy. As if crossing it meant something more than just entering a room. He reached out and pushed it open. The inside was dark again. But this time, there was no mistaking it. Something had been moved. The wooden chest was open. The mats were scattered. And on the wall, faint but visible in the dim light, were marks, lines, symbols. The same kind Amina had just seen in the hidden place deep in the trees. Kareem stepped inside slowly, his fear rising with every second. And then he noticed something else. On the ground, near the corner where the figure had stood, there was an object. Small. Familiar. He bent down, his hands shaking as he picked it up. It was Amina's scarf. The same one she had taken when she left. But that was impossible. Because no one had seen her return. Kareem's mind raced, his heart pounding harder than ever. She hadn't come back. Then how did this get here? And more importantly, what else had entered the house with it? Kareem stared at the scarf in his hands as if it might disappear if he blinked. His fingers tightened around the fabric, his mind refusing to accept what his eyes were clearly seeing. This was the same scarf, the one Amina had wrapped around herself when she stepped out of the house. "I saw her leave," he whispered almost to himself. "She never came back." Behind him, the villagers waited in uneasy silence. No one dared step inside, but no one walked away either. It was as if something was holding them there, forcing them to witness whatever was unfolding. Bashir finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "Kareem, come out of there." But Kareem didn't move. His eyes slowly lifted from the scarf to the wall again, the strange markings, faint but clear enough to send a chill through him. They hadn't been there before. He was sure of it. This was his house. Every corner, every crack in the wall, he knew it all. And yet now it felt like a place he had never seen before. "How can this be happening?" he muttered. A sudden gust of wind rushed through the doorway, even though the night outside was still. The lamp behind him flickered again, casting moving shadows across the walls. For a brief second, those shadows didn't look like shadows at all. They looked like shapes. Moving shapes. Kareem turned sharply. "Did you see that?" he called out. But the villagers outside shook their heads, confusion mixed with fear on their faces. Inside the air grew heavier. Then came the sound again. Soft, slow, unmistakable. Footsteps. Not outside. Not near the door. From deeper inside the house. Kareem's chest tightened. His first instinct was to run, to drop everything and get out. But something stronger held him in place. A mix of fear, guilt, and a strange need to understand what was happening. "Amina?" he called out suddenly, his voice cracking. The footsteps stopped. Silence followed. The kind of silence that feels louder than any sound. Then very softly. "Amina?" the voice echoed again. But this time it didn't sound like it was calling her. It sounded like it was repeating him. Mocking him. Kareem stumbled back a step, his grip on the scarf loosening. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice shaking now. No answer. But the temperature in the room dropped suddenly, sending a visible shiver through him. Outside, Bashir stepped closer to the door, his expression tense. "Kareem, listen to me. Whatever this is, you don't face it alone. Come out." But Kareem barely heard him. Because right in front of him, something was starting to form. At first it was just a shadow. Darker than the rest. Standing where the corner met the wall. Then slowly, it began to take shape. A figure. Still. Silent. Watching. Kareem's breath caught in his throat. His legs felt weak but he couldn't look away. "Say something," he whispered. The figure didn't respond. But it moved. Just slightly. Enough to make it clear, it wasn't part of the wall. It wasn't a trick of light. It was there. At the same time, far from the village, Amina stood inside the glowing structure, the necklace still in her hands. The soft light around her seemed to pulse gently, as if responding to her presence. Her mind was racing. Nothing made sense anymore. The voice, the path, this place, and now this necklace. She held it up, studying it carefully. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "What am I supposed to do?" For a moment nothing happened. Then the light in the room shifted. Not brighter. Not dimmer. Just different. And the voice returned. "You were sent away, but you were brought here." Amina frowned slightly. Brought here for what? This time the answer didn't come in words. It came in a feeling. A sudden rush of memories, some hers, some not. Faces she didn't recognize. Voices she had never heard before. Moments that didn't belong to her, yet felt connected to her in a way she couldn't explain. She gasped, taking a step back. "What is this?" she whispered. The necklace in her hand grew warmer. And then she realized something that made her heart race. The symbols on the walls, they matched something. Something she had seen before. Not here. Not tonight. But somewhere connected. Back in Kareem's house. Kareem was still staring at the figure, his mind struggling to keep up with what was happening. Every instinct told him to run, but his feet refused to move. The figure took a step forward. Slow. Deliberate. And as it moved closer to the faint light, Kareem noticed something that made his stomach drop. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It had form. Shape. And something about it looked familiar. Too familiar. His voice came out as a whisper. "No, that's not possible." The figure tilted its head slightly. Almost like it was listening. Or recognizing him. Outside, the tension had reached its peak. The villagers could feel it now. Whatever was happening inside was building toward something none of them could predict. Bashir took a deep breath and made a decision. "We're going in," he said. A few men hesitated, but then slowly nodded. Together they stepped toward the door. At that exact moment, Amina closed her eyes, gripping the necklace tightly. The warmth spread through her hand, up her arm and into her chest. And suddenly, she saw it. Not with her eyes. But clearly. Kareem's house. The dark room. The figure standing in front of him. Her eyes snapped open. "Kareem," she breathed. Back in the house, Kareem took a shaky step back as the figure moved closer into the light. Closer. Closer. Until he could almost see its face. And just as Bashir and the others crossed the doorway, the lamp burst into a bright, blinding flame for a split second. And then everything went dark. For a moment, it felt like the world had stopped. No sound. No light. No movement. Just darkness, thick and suffocating. Kareem couldn't even tell if his eyes were open or closed. His ears rang with a sharp silence, the kind that presses against your head until you can't think straight. He tried to move, but his body felt frozen, like something unseen was holding him in place. Then, slowly, the darkness began to shift. Not disappear, just change. A faint glow returned, but it wasn't coming from the lamp anymore. It was softer, colder, and it seemed to be coming from the walls themselves. Kareem blinked rapidly, trying to focus. The room was no longer the same. The walls, they were covered now. Completely covered in those strange symbols. Not faint like before, but bold, stretching from the floor to the ceiling as if they had always been there, just waiting to be seen. "What is this?" Kareem whispered, his voice trembling. Behind him, Bashir and the others stood frozen at the doorway. None of them spoke. None of them moved. It was as if crossing that threshold had pulled them into something they didn't understand, and couldn't escape. One of the younger men tried to step back outside. He couldn't. His foot hit the doorway, but it felt like hitting a solid wall. "There's something here," he said, panic rising in his voice. "I can't go out." Bashir turned sharply, pressing his hand against the air where the door should have been open. Nothing. No exit. The door was still there, but something invisible had sealed it. Kareem's breathing became uneven. "This isn't real," he muttered. "This can't be real." But deep down he knew it was. Because the figure was still there. Closer now. Clear. And this time, there was no mistaking it. It looked like him. Same height. Same posture. Same face. Kareem's knees almost gave out beneath him. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "This is not possible." The figure tilted its head again, mirroring his movement perfectly. But its eyes, they were empty. Not dark. Not glowing. Just empty. Like something was missing. or something had been taken. Outside, though it no longer felt like outside, the villagers began murmuring in fear. Some recited quiet prayers under their breath. Others simply stood there, unable to process what they were seeing. Bashir stepped forward slowly, his voice steady but low. "Kareem, don't let it come closer." But Kareem couldn't move, because as the figure took another step, something else happened. It spoke. Not loudly, not clearly, but enough. "You sent her away?" The words echoed strangely, like they were coming from more than one place at once. Kareem's heart pounded. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice breaking. The figure didn't answer directly. Instead, it lifted its hand slowly and pointed toward the scarf still clutched in Kareem's grip. "You opened the door?" Kareem's mind raced. "I didn't open anything. I told her to leave, that's all." The moment the words left his mouth, the air shifted again. He felt it. A sudden heaviness pressing down on him, as if the room itself had reacted. The figure took another step forward. "You chose." Kareem shook his head violently. "No. It was just anger. Just a moment." But even as he spoke, something deep inside him twisted. Because he remembered that moment clearly. The way he didn't stop her. The way he turned away. The way he closed the door without looking back. Back in the hidden structure, Amina staggered slightly as the vision intensified. She could see everything now, clearer than before. The house, the people inside, the figure standing in front of Kareem. And something else. Something she hadn't noticed before. The symbols. They weren't just on the walls. They were moving. Slowly shifting, connecting, forming patterns. And those patterns, they were linking the house to this place. Amina looked around her, her breath quickening. This place, it's connected to him, she realized. To that house. The necklace in her hand pulsed again, brighter this time. And suddenly a second voice appeared. Different from the first. Stronger. Not just to him. Amina froze. Then, to what? No answer came. But the feeling grew stronger. A pull. As if something was asking her to make a choice. Back in the house, the tension reached a breaking point. The figure now stood just a few steps away from Kareem. Close enough that he could see every detail of its face. It was him. But not entirely. There was something hollow about it. Something incomplete, like a reflection that had lost its source. "What do you want from me?" Kareem asked, his voice almost pleading now. The figure stopped. Then slowly, it leaned closer. "So you can see." The words came out clearer this time. "What you became." Kareem's eyes widened. And in that moment, the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. The room trembled slightly as if something deeper was waking up. Bashir stepped forward quickly. "This is going too far," he said. "We have to break this, whatever this is." But as he reached out, the air around them pulsed violently, forcing him back. The figure didn't move. He just kept staring at Kareem. Waiting. As if the next moment, the next choice, would change everything. And far away, yet somehow closer than ever, Amina took a slow step forward, the necklace glowing in her hand, her heart caught between fear and something else rising within her. Because she could feel it now. Whatever was happening in that house was no longer just about Kareem. Was about her too. And the next moment would decide both of their fates. The air inside the house felt like it was about to break. Kareem stood frozen as the figure leaned closer, its empty eyes fixed on him. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsed faster now, like a heartbeat growing louder with every second. The ground beneath their feet trembled lightly, and the villagers behind Bashir stepped back in fear. "Do something, Kareem," Bashir shouted. "Don't just stand there." But Kareem couldn't look away. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely steady. The figure didn't move back. Instead, it raised its hand slowly and placed it against Kareem's chest. The moment it touched him, Kareem gasped. Images rushed into his mind, sharp, overwhelming, impossible to ignore. He saw Amina standing at the door again, her eyes searching his face one last time. He saw himself turning away. He saw the door closing. But then, more images came. Moments he had forgotten. Small things. Words he had said without thinking. Times he chose silence when he should have spoken with care. The slow distance that had grown between them, piece by piece. Kareem dropped to his knees, the weight of it all crashing down on him. "I didn't know," he whispered, tears forming in his eyes. "I didn't see it happening." The figure spoke again, its voice no longer mocking, but heavy. "You did not see, because you did not look." At the same moment, deep in the hidden place, Amina felt the same surge, like her heart was being pulled in two directions at once. The necklace in her hand burned with warmth, and the symbols around her began to glow brighter than ever before. She could see Kareem clearly now, on his knees, broken. For the first time she didn't feel anger. She felt something else. A choice. The voice returned, stronger now. What was broken can be faced, or it can be left behind. Amina closed her eyes tightly. Her hands trembled. If I go back, will it end? She asked. There was a pause. Then the answer came, calm but firm. It will change. Back in the house, Kareem pressed his hands against the floor, breathing heavily. I was wrong, he said, his voice shaking. I thought I was in control. I thought sending her away would fix everything. The figure slowly stepped back, watching him. And now? It asked. Kareem lifted his head, tears running down his face. Now I know I lost everything the moment I let her walk away. The room fell silent. The glowing symbols flickered as if waiting. Then suddenly a strong wind rushed through the house again, but this time it didn't feel cold. It felt alive. At that exact moment, Amina opened her eyes and stepped forward. The light around her burst outward, and in the next instant, she was standing at the doorway. The villagers gasped. Bashir's eyes widened. Amina, he whispered. Kareem slowly turned his head, his heart stopping for a moment when he saw her. She stood there, calm but changed. There was a quiet strength in her presence now, something deeper than before. Amina, Kareem said, his voice breaking. The figure turned toward her too. For the first time it moved differently, no longer focused on Kareem alone. Amina stepped inside the house, her eyes briefly scanning the glowing symbols, the shaken villagers, and finally, Kareem. She didn't rush to him. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she lifted the necklace slightly, and as she did, the symbols on the walls reacted instantly, shifting, glowing brighter as if recognizing her. The figure began to fade slightly. Kareem noticed it and looked between her and the figure. What is happening? He asked. Amina finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. This is what we brought into this house. Kareem shook his head, confused. I don't understand. You pushed me out, she said gently but with weight. But what you really pushed away was everything we built together. The figure flickered again, weaker now. Kareem looked at it, then back at her. Can this stop? He asked. Amina held his gaze for a long moment. Then she said quietly, only if you face it, not run from it. Kareem nodded slowly. With trembling effort he stood up. He turned fully toward the figure. I see it now, he said. All of it. The figure remained still. I can't change what I did, Kareem continued, his voice steadier now. But I won't hide from it anymore. For a moment nothing happened. Then the figure took one final step forward, and stopped. Its empty eyes met his. And then, slowly, it began to dissolve. Not violently. Not suddenly. Just fading, like mist disappearing in the morning light. The symbols on the walls dimmed one by one, their glow softening until the room returned to normal. The heaviness lifted. The air felt clear again. The invisible barrier at the door vanished, and the villagers stumbled slightly as the pressure around them disappeared. Silence filled the space. Real silence this time. Kareem stood there, staring at where the figure had been. It's over, one of the villagers whispered. Bashir exhaled deeply. Maybe, he said. Kareem turned slowly toward Amina. There were no more strange lights now. No symbols. Just the two of them, standing in the same house that had nearly fallen apart. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said quietly. Amina didn't answer right away. She looked around the house, then back at him. Finally she said, some things don't go back to how they were. Kareem nodded, his eyes lowering. But, she continued softly, that doesn't mean they can't be rebuilt. A small, fragile hope settled in the room. The villagers slowly began to leave, whispering among themselves, unsure of what they had just witnessed. Bashir paused at the door, looking back once more before stepping out. Soon it was just Kareem and Amina. The night had grown quiet again. Almost too quiet. Amina glanced down at her hand. The necklace was gone. Her expression changed slightly. Kareem noticed. What is it? He asked. She looked back at him, a hint of uncertainty in her eyes. It didn't disappear when everything else did, she said slowly. Before Kareem could respond, a faint sound echoed softly through the house. Not loud. Not clear. But enough to be heard. A whisper. From somewhere deep within the walls. Kareem's face went still. Amina turned her head slightly, listening. The whisper came again. Not calling her name this time. Not mocking. Just present. As if something had left. But something else had quietly stayed behind. Kareem and Amina stood still, both listening carefully as that faint whisper settled into the silence of the house. It wasn't loud enough to understand, but it was there, soft, almost like a memory refusing to fade. Kareem looked uneasy again. "Did you hear that?" he asked quietly. Amina nodded, but her reaction was different this time. There was no fear in her eyes, only thoughtfulness, as if she was trying to understand something deeper. "It's not the same," she said slowly. Kareem frowned. "Not the same as what?" "As before," she replied. "Whatever was here, whatever we faced, it's gone. This feels different." He didn't fully understand, but he trusted her tone. The house no longer felt heavy or suffocating. The walls looked normal again, the strange symbols completely gone, as if they had never existed. The door stood open and the cool night air moved gently through the room. Still, something had changed. Not just in the house. In both of them. Kareem walked slowly to the doorway and looked outside. The village had returned to its quiet state. A few distant lanterns flickered, and the night carried on as if nothing had happened. But he knew better. He turned back to Amina. "I don't think I'll ever forget this night," he said. Amina gave a small, understanding nod. "You're not supposed to." There was a pause between them, not uncomfortable but honest. The kind of silence that comes when words are no longer enough to explain everything. Kareem took a step closer, careful, like he didn't want to break whatever fragile moment they had. "When I told you to leave," he began, then stopped, struggling to find the right words. "I thought I was ending a problem. I didn't realize I was creating something worse." Amina looked at him steadily. "It wasn't just that moment," she said gently. "It was everything that led up to it." Kareem nodded, accepting it. "I see that now." Another quiet moment passed. Then Amina walked further into the house, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. She touched the wall lightly, then the wooden chest, then the edge of the doorway. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. "This house," she said softly, "it holds what we bring into it. Good or bad." Kareem followed her gaze. "And tonight, we saw what happens when it becomes too much." Amina turned to him. "Not just the house. Us." Those words stayed between them, heavy but important. Outside, the first light of dawn was beginning to touch the sky. The darkness that had filled the night was slowly fading, replaced by a calm, quiet morning. Bashir returned briefly, standing at the entrance. "Everything all right?" he asked. Kareem looked at him and gave a small nod. "It's quiet now." Bashir studied both of them for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Sometimes quiet is the answer," he said. "Not because nothing happened, but because something finally settled." Amina nodded respectfully. "Thank you for staying." Bashir waved it off gently. "Some things you don't walk away from." Then he added, "Take care of what matters now." With that, he left them alone again. As the sun slowly rose, the house filled with natural light. It felt warmer, softer. The kind of warmth that didn't come from fire or lamps, but from a sense of peace returning after chaos. Kareem sat down, looking tired but calmer. "What about the necklace?" he asked after a while. "Do you think it will come back?" Amina shook her head slightly. "I don't think it was meant to stay." "Then why did it come at all?" he asked. She thought for a moment before answering. "Maybe it was never about the necklace. Maybe it was just a way to bring me back when I needed to be here." Kareem absorbed that quietly. "And the whisper?" he asked. Amina looked toward the wall again, listening, not with fear but with understanding. "I think," she said slowly, "some things don't disappear completely. Not the mistakes, not the lessons. They stay, but not to harm us." "Then why?" Kareem asked. "So we don't forget," she replied. That answer settled something inside him. He looked around the house one more time. It no longer felt like a place filled with tension or shadows. It felt like a beginning, uncertain, maybe fragile, but real. Kareem stood up again. "I don't know what comes next," he admitted. Amina gave a small, honest smile. "We figure it out. One step at a time." There was no dramatic moment after that. No sudden change. Just two people standing in a house that had tested them in ways they never expected. But something important had shifted. The anger was gone. The distance had been seen. And the silence between them was no longer empty. Outside, the village slowly came to life. Roosters crowed, people stepped out of their homes, and the world continued as it always does. But for Kareem and Amina, things would never be exactly the same again. And maybe that was the point. As the morning light filled every corner of the house, the last trace of the night faded away. The whisper never came again, Not that day, not in the same way. But sometimes when the house grew quiet, when the wind moved just right, there was a feeling. Not fear. Not darkness. Just a reminder that what we say, what we do, and how we treat the people closest to us leaves a mark. And some stories don't come to scare us. They come to show us what we almost lost before we had the chance to make it right.